Welcome everyone to this Pearson webinar for Business Administrator. My name is Zoe Benfield. I'm currently caretaking the role of Lead IQA for Business Administrator. And today I'm going to be taking you through a PowerPoint for existing customers and discussing best practice and the Business Administrator endpoint assessment as a whole. Okay, so this is the overview for the processes for the Business Administrator endpoint assessment. And first, we're going to quickly have a look at on-programme and endpoint assessment. So obviously, whilst on-programme, the apprentice will be learning the theory of Business Administrator with 20% off-job training and putting this into practice in the workplace. The endpoint assessment is a summative assessment at the end of this time to showcase the learning within this time. So in terms of what we require at the end, it is linked to a specific specification, the endpoint assessment specification, as a summative assessment. So the first thing we're going to be looking at today is preparing the apprentice for endpoint assessment. And I go into more detail in this later on for the individual components. So all information can be found in the specification and additional resources. This is all located on ACE 360 Knowledgebase. Now this is relatively new. On the left-hand side of ACE, there is a blue menu and a magnifying glass. You click on the magnifying glass and you can click on any of our standards and have a look at our specification, additional resources for each standard that we have. Customer service, business administrator, team leader, they are all listed on there. There is also a generic bank of knowledge documents that can be used. This is particularly important at the moment due to the ongoing situation we are in, and all updated information is uploaded to the knowledge base. Apprentices must complete their on-programme learning for at least 12 months. So they must be on programme for a minimum of 12 months, and then they can pass through Gateway and have their endpoint assessment. All the information is needed to be uploaded for ACE 360. This is our centre for all information for Gateway, the assessment instruments, the notification of results, the employer's address, everything that we need to know about that apprentice is on ACE 360 from start to finish. Once the apprentice has been uploaded to ACE 360 and the Gateway documents uploaded, they will be checked and an assessor is allocated, and the endpoint assessment should be conducted within 8 weeks from that date. Obviously, this is a case-by-case basis and also depends on the availability of the apprentice and the employer. And the apprentice should have the opportunity to practice delivering the presentation and using their portfolio evidence. This is vital practice that needs to happen. They need to know that portfolio evidence inside out and know how it is linked to the specification for the endpoint assessment. And again, delivering that presentation to build their confidence and also enable them to practice within the time limit of 15 minutes allowed. And I'll go into more detail in the specific sections as we go through. So in terms of Gateway, what needs to be uploaded? So we have our annexes, A, B, and C. All three of these need to be signed, dated correctly, and uploaded with all boxes completed. The portfolio of evidence for the interview with a mapping grid should also be uploaded here, and the folder should be easily accessible. The apprentice can only use information that has been uploaded to ACE for their portfolio interview. So it is important that this is the final documents that are required for the endpoint assessment. And then proof of English and math achievement. In terms of the project presentation, this can be uploaded to the shared area, and the independent endpoint assessor will ask for this during the planning meeting. So we're going to look at the individual components and go into a little bit more detail about those components and what we can do to assist, what resources we have and how you can prepare the apprentices. So the first one is a multiple choice test. This is graded out of 50 and they require 60% to achieve a pass, and for this component they can achieve a distinction for this component. It can be completed either paper-based or using Edexcel online. At present, we do not have a way of conducting the multiple choice test if the apprentice is working from home. If the apprentice is in the workplace still, then we can use employer invigilation using a secure file system and a paper-based test. So under normal circumstances, this should be completed before the other two components and can be completed by the training provider, or the independent endpoint assessor could also support with the multiple choice test. In terms of the multiple choice test, it is a series of 50 questions with a possible 4 answers. There are practice multiple choice tests on the Knowledgebase on ACE 360. So again, if you go to the left-hand side of ACE, click on that magnifying glass, select Business Administrator, and you'll be able to find those practice papers in the Knowledgebase. The second component is a portfolio-based interview. And to achieve a pass with a portfolio-based interview, apprentice must get 60 out of 100, 60% to achieve that pass. In terms of an overall grade, whether it be pass, distinction, or fail, it is all 3 grades are added together. Each component must have been completed at a pass to get an overall pass. And if the apprentice gets 200 out of 250 or above, then they can achieve a distinction overall. So thinking about the evidence that is uploaded now. So this evidence is uploaded to ACE before the assessment, and it is very important the apprentice understands and knows what evidence is in that folder. The apprentice is going to need to show this evidence for some of the questions to prove the actions and behaviours have occurred. The portfolio interview is 45 minutes long, and one of the main problems is time running out because the apprentice can't find the appropriate evidence. So it is key that that evidence is listed clearly in a way they understand and able to find it. In our additional resources on ACE 360, there is a clear mapping grid showing what evidence can be used and how it can be linked to the criteria. You don't have to use this, you can create your own. However, it is a good start if you want to have a look at that to enable the apprentice to be able to locate their evidence quickly, having that clear mapping grid. Again, if they have too many pieces of evidence, it can be confusing, and too few, they might not have sufficient evidence in there. So in that 45 minutes, they will get asked a series of show me or tell me questions around 17 areas of knowledge and behaviour. The tell me questions, the apprentice literally just has to answer with tell me. If they want to show evidence, that is absolutely fine, but they don't have to for the tell me evidence. If they are asked show me, they then have to prove that they have completed that action or behaviour in the workplace. So this could be proving IT skills, proving they understand legislation, for example. And again, in the additional resources, the mapping grid states what evidence could be used. It doesn't have to be that evidence, but what could be used to support that criteria. Practicing with the apprentice and going through their evidence and making sure they know what is in each piece of evidence is vital so they can get that information quickly for the independent endpoint assessor. At the moment, the majority, in fact all endpoint assessments are taking place via Zoom or other online portals. And the apprentice should know how to share that evidence to the screen if they have a digital copy of that. So again, this can be practiced before the assessment so they're proficient and can do this quickly and efficiently to ensure they can have the most amount of time on questions rather than finding the evidence. If there are technical issues, we will take that into account with timing, but if the apprentice can't find the evidence, then unfortunately we do not add on extra time for this. So in the specification, you can find the areas that will be questioned around, and this includes IT, record and document production, interpersonal skills, communication, quality, planning and organisation, the organisation, value of their skills, stakeholders, relevant regulations, policies, external environmental factors, professionalism, personal qualities, managing performance, adaptability, and responsibility. All these areas will be assessed throughout the interview, and we do look at the interview holistically. So if the apprentice has responded clearly and can cover many criteria, we will take that into account. In terms of the evidence, it isn't about quantity, it is about quality and making sure that it is suitable and linked to the specification. And you can find all that information in our specification and in the additional resources and mapping grid that can be found on ACE 360 Knowledgebase. Moving on to the project presentation. Again, it is 60% to achieve a pass, 60 out of 100. And by adding up the 3 components is where we find out if it is a fail, pass, or distinction. And the project presentation should be an improvement to a process. It is a pre-prepared presentation that is completed, demonstrate a project undertaken in the last 3 months of the apprenticeship. This should be completed in the last 3 months of the apprenticeship, so the apprentice has the skills and knowledge to be able to undertake the project. This is done on a case-by-case basis, and this can be looked at individually. In the specification, it states should be completed in the last 3 months of apprenticeship, but it does have to show an improvement to a process. Again, we're looking at quite tight time constraints on this. So the apprentice only has 15 minutes to present this and 15 further minutes for question and answer, which the independent endpoint assessor will lead. The apprentice will need to produce a PowerPoint or a presentation and clearly link this to the specification and grade criteria as listed in all documents, so the specification documents and the additional resources. It is looking at 7 areas: IT, communications, planning and organising, stakeholders, decision making, project management and processes. In terms of IT, we are looking at the presentation itself. And in terms of communicating, not only are we looking at the communication that happens within the project itself, but also how it is presented, the apprentice's tone of voice, their confidence. So again, this is something that should be practiced. Not only do they need to deliver their presentation slides within that 15 minutes, so they need to practice to ensure that can happen, they also need to be able to link it to the criteria, so they don't give us information that may not be required. Again, this could affect the timings. When delivering it, they need to be confident and show a good tone of voice. I would recommend that this is practiced in front of someone maybe of a managerial position or someone they've not met before, to help practice and help give them the confidence to deliver that presentation successfully. In terms of the question and answer, the independent endpoint assessor can question any area of the presentation and the project, whether this has been discussed or not. So any of the grade criteria that has not been sufficiently met, the independent endpoint assessor can question the apprentice further. Some examples of some of the projects we've had have been quite large projects, such as introducing an app for a company, and others have been smaller depending on the company, one of which was changing a filing system from numerical to alphabetical, and one of which was the staff were allowed breakfast every morning, and they bought in a weekly amount of food, and the apprentice worked out how to save them a set amount of money over that 3 months. So we do look at the industry they're in and think what might be suitable in that area. Having the pre-prepared slides as well, not having too many slides. Too many slides can often mean that we don't meet the time limit. And once that 15 minutes of presenting has completed, the independent endpoint assessor will stop the apprentice, whether they finish that presentation or not. So when that 15 minutes plus or minus 10% is over, they will be stopped. Once the endpoint assessment's been completed, all 3 components, then a notification of results will be completed. And this is put on the shared area of ACE 360 for training providers and apprentices. The notification of results has many uses. It not only gives you the overall result of the assessment, be that pass, fail, or distinction, and the individual grade criteria. For example, if they receive 44 out of 50 for the multiple choice test, it will state 44 out of 50 on the notification of results. It will give positive and constructive feedback, what went well, and also the constructive feedback. So, for example, if the apprentice hasn't passed a component, then we will try and give feedback as to why that was not met. And this can be then linked to the specification for future assessments, so the apprentice can see what they need to work on to improve their result on a second attempt. Also, this helps with training providers see trends in what the apprentices are doing well and what they might need support on. It's also support and guidance for future assessments. So if there was one criteria area that was not being met consistently, obviously this could be standardized internally, and using our specification should enable more positive results going forward. So looking at the timelines. So what can we do to work together to ensure timely assessments happen? So some key emails for you there. So you can talk to your business development manager. You can contact EPA delivery, or you can, at the moment for business administrator and customer service, you can contact myself. When uploading the documents, ensure they are scanned, dated and signed correctly, including when you are scanning documents, all 4 corners of certificates are in there, all date boxes are filled in. And I know this is currently difficult with getting wet signatures, but digital signatures are fine. Once all this has been uploaded, the assessor will then check all this information and sign off Gateway, and then they will contact the employer and apprentice to book a planning meeting. Now, the planning meeting is in place so we can ensure we have all the information required, including additional learning needs, what technology the apprentice has access to. We can discuss their product presentation and ask that to get uploaded to ACE 360, and also give them information and a guide of what will happen on the day to ensure a smooth endpoint assessment. Obviously, at the moment, we may have trouble getting the multiple choice test completed as not all apprentices are in the workplace, but we can still do the portfolio interview and the project presentation, and the multiple choice test can be done at a later date. So results after the endpoint assessment has occurred are collated and quality assured within 5 working days. So if the apprentice sits their endpoint assessment on a Wednesday, by the following Wednesday at 5 PM, they will have their results. In the case of paper-based testing for multiple choice, it is a 10 working day turnaround. Certificates are sent out by the ESFA. It is triggered by ACE when the final result has been entered. If it is a distinction, the certificate will be sent out within a week, and the apprentice should have that within 2 weeks. If the apprentice achieved a pass, there is a 2-week lull before the certificate will be sent out, just in case of appeals. And if it is not met, you can use a notification of results to understand why it hasn't been met and apply for a resit when the apprentice is ready to complete that resit. In terms of problems, ACE 360 isn't owned and run by Pearson. We do lease the software, so if there are any problems or an incorrect input of made, please contact ACE 360. They have online webinars and they have a document explaining how to use ACE successfully. But if there are any problems or concerns, you can contact support at ACE and they will get back to you very quickly. If there are any appeals to assessment decisions, these can be sent to EPA delivery. General queries and comments can be asked by email to either myself or EPA delivery. And questions about your contracts and payments should be directed to your business development managers. If you're unsure who your business development manager is, again, you can speak to EPA delivery and they'll be able to support you.